But first, it's shaping up to be a key battleground of the next election, how to win over women. Labour says boys should be taught lessons on how to respect women to stop laddish banter leading to violence. And Sir Keir Starmer says making it part of the school curriculum would bring about cultural change. He wants pupils to hear from victims of abuse so they'll call out friends who act in a misogynistic way. And Rishi Sunak hit back today, claiming he was the party leader who could actually define what a woman is. The Prime Minister promised to protect women's rights and spaces in changing rooms, prisons and sports, arguing that biological sex really matters. Now, as the parent of two young teenage boys, not quite so young as they were, obviously, I mean, I don't know whether you need to do this, really. I think the problem for a lot of young teenage boys, and we've talked about this before, is that, you know, they're already made to feel as if they're somehow doing something wrong all the time. They're somehow, you know, not treating women properly. I mean, obviously, there's so much to this kind of story that if you've got kids, surely you're supposed to teach them to respect everybody, including women, including men, including whoever's in between, you know. And I think putting it in as part of a curriculum, particularly for Starmer, which is a problem for him, the subject of women, because he still has this idea that, you know, not all women
he can't fully
imbued with female genitalia.
I mean, with this, I mean, how dare they, as a political party, we're going to educate the young boys to be good to women. I mean, this is almost, arguably, the worst thing I've ever heard from a political party. The idea that, I'm sorry, that's why you have parents, kids. Yeah. That's what parents do.
Do you honestly trust that every single parent in this country is going to be raising their sons to respect women?
Do you think but more than I trust every teacher? Seriously? Which is like, I mean, honestly, the idea...
I'm so shocked.
Hang on one second, girls.
Listen, let me just... Listen to the men, Afua. Let's listen to the boys.
Well, I'm sorry, this is not mansplaining. I'm a bloke talking about blokes here. So there is clearly... what he's picked up on here is the idea that we've all gone hysterical, that everybody's offended by everything. You know, men are clearly not to be trusted because of a few tiny examples among the male population as a percentage, which hasn't, by the way, as a percentage, which has never increased, hasn't got worse over the years. It's just the same. Arguably, it's probably got better in many respects. We talk about stuff now. We see social media now. We've run away with this idea that all kids are some sexist, misogynist clowns that need some education via the classroom.
We're not saying that at all.
Leave it to the parents. But boys will have banter, by the way. Boys will look at a girl and they will say, she's a bit fit. And is that meant to be something you then report to your colleagues? It's almost not worth you responding, Afua. There's nothing to say to them.
Teenage boys become adult men who can go on to sexually assault and rape women.
How did you get there? How did you get to sexually assault? From just boys being boys in the classroom, girls being girls.
There's a real difference between boys being boys and where we are now. Now, if you can tie this idea of boys having respect for girls into education lessons like social and sex education...
That is a given anyway, Afua.
It's not a given.
That is a given.
How many times have you been sexually assaulted by a man?
How many times?
No, that isn't the question.
That is the kind of question Keir Starmer would ask in order to advance his daft policy.
It's not a given, and it should be done, because we do live in an age... We do live in an age of social media when you've got people like Andrew Tate who are influencing young men. Can I finish?
Is the geography teacher going to stop this, Afua?
Can I finish?
I hadn't actually finished before he started.
It's not about the geography teacher. Look, if you bring this into sort of sex and social education lessons about boys respecting girls, remember, we live in a time where there's an epidemic of violence against women, where we have the Metropolitan Police almost every single week. We are hearing about police officers convicted of rape, of misogynistic messages in groups, racism, homophobia, all of these things. If we bring this into social and sex education in schools, then that goes some way. It's not a complete, but it's obviously not working. And for you to sit and say that this is not needed is absolutely ridiculous.
You know what I would suggest, after what you've just said, maybe the police need these lessons, not...
They absolutely do.
May I just dial this down and just be a little objective about this? And actually, weirdly,
we can't be objective, David, because we're women.
Weirdly,
and it affects us.
Okay.
So we can't be objective.
And affects men.
So let's just take this back to the beginning, which is actually, I think, teaching respect in schools is a really important point.
Yeah.
However, this isn't exactly my point. So this isn't just about teaching boys about girls. It's also about girls about being taught about boys. Also, domestic violence works both ways. A third of domestic violence is against men. 50% of them don't report it to the police. 11% are suicidal as a result of their own experiences. So actually, it's about tolerance. It's about treating everyone equally. Bullying is absolutely abhorrent, and boys are particularly good at ganging up, and so therefore it becomes very, very dangerous. And so are girls, But actually, we need to do this as a whole. The parents have a huge responsibility, but so do the schools.
Can I just put this in? This is a bit like the conversation about, why do we have an obesity problem when simultaneously we've never had more information about diets and nutrition. There has never been more awareness about respect. There's never been more conversations about all of this stuff. We could have been sitting here 10 years ago having this conversation. My little boy is 9. This kind of stuff is already discussed in schools. It's discussed in the house. It's discussed It's never been discussed more. Simultaneously, you have the explosion of social media, which has led everybody to believe that all of these extremities are somehow the norm. They're not the norm. They're exceptions. Nobody is saying we don't want to educate kids.
Indeed.
It happens largely organically. There's no way that a teacher in the classroom, somebody who is either pre-programmed or has a proclivity to be disrespectful or even something much worse, your geography teacher, your RE teacher, whoever it is,
Nicholas'
is not
Nicholas' point is valid. Can I just stick up for you?
You can stick up for me after I've spoken for myself. I've been a women's rights campaigner for 7 years now. Officially, and I've cared about this subject for a lot longer. I promise you that violence against women and girls can be stopped in the classroom with education.
It's a lovely kind of
by the
slightly
time
mad left-wing thinking idea, but it won't happen,
it
Nicola.
is too late. They're not just talking about telling boys, don't assault women. It's about telling boys, look, these are the signs to look out for in your other friends. We, as
signs
teachers,
to look out for. Where are we living? What sort of world are we living in?
We're living in a world where women are being...
What are those signs,
We
then?
live in a world, Ian,
what are
where
those signs?
every 3 days a woman is killed by her partner
Nobody
or
is
ex-partner.
disputing that, and none of this is going to stop
OK,
that,
but I'm trying to change it, and you're not.
But can I just...
I would love to change
he's not trying to
but
change
what you're
it.
trying to do
No,
is...
I am, because I campaign on
you're
it.
trying
You
to,
can try and
your
change
campaigning,
one
I'm sure, is very, very worthy. But futile in the sense that you cannot campaign or make a policy on the human condition, Nicola.
Are you saying that, OK, men are beyond it then? The human condition is men are going to rape women, there's nothing we can do about it?
I am telling you that criminality,
psychosis
and all manner of other issues
all men
just there.
who rape women.
We all want to stop that.
No, but you can educate men, friends of rapists, who might spot or have seen them covering something up to go forward to their teachers or go forward to their employers.
So what is a 10-year-old going to spot that's going to stop a potential serial killing rapist?
A young lad, a 10-year-old sexually assaulting a girl in the bathroom, which happened to me, happened to my friends at school.
Well, of course, that's going to be reported anyway.
Old.
That's going to be reported. Who would not report?
So may I just go back to the point I made at the beginning, which is it's about educating boys and girls. Now, not all parents are as good as the two of you. So, therefore, it is also up to the state, it's up to the classroom also to instil that sort of strength of character and to say being strong is actually sticking up for the weakest person, and that goes across the board.
And that message has never been more pronounced.
I mean, it's a bit like saying if you teach everybody maths, they'll all end up going to university to study maths. They won't. Education doesn't work like that. Some people can learn from education and from what they're told in school, but not everybody can.
And
some people are scumbags.
The grim reality is the human condition has some wonderful things about it, but it has the most, horrendous elements to it as well. And I don't think, your teacher or even your parent is going to necessarily always be able to stop that.
If the education system was brilliant...
We all want the same thing, obviously.
But if the education system was brilliant at what it did, every kid that comes out of the school system would be a great kid.
I'm so glad all of the men are talking for us. I'm so glad everyone's got our back.
No, I'm talking for men.
I'm talking for men.
That's a classic trope when you've run out of ideas.
It's far more important to
throw the mansplaining thing in there as well.
To be able to stop violence against women and girls.
Everybody wants that. That's a given. Nobody would dispute that.
Well, all that Sunak said today is, I know how to define a woman. Well, I'm sorry, the imaginary of a trans woman is not what is causing problems for women.
Absolutely.
Well, I would agree with you on that.
Well, it is in Scotland.
There you go.
No, it's not.